And it looks like we have Dr. Hudson in the house.
Does it appear that way?
What's up, guys?
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing? So welcome to the Gangstagrass live stream.
Oh, we have two of you. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great bonus.
You know I can't do the internet right, so. Hi, guys.
Hey.
It's been forever.
I know. I haven't seen you since we were in Lexington, I believe.
I know.
No, actually.
No, in Indy.
In Indianapolis.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she joined us at Pork Chops.
Yeah.
Oh, came to the man cave with the pork chops. Awesome.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Those of you who don't know, pork chop is a person.
Excellent point.
but we do have a fabulous homie in Indianapolis who always shows us mad love. His family invites us into his home, where he has like a nice stage and music venue there where things get popping.
Yep, and a big
I'm kind
Wonder
of
Woman
sad that I wasn't
collection.
able to see you guys this year anywhere. Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, we're sad.
We're pretty sad
Very
about that
sad.
too.
We're here. We're right here. We're right here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we're doing what we can.
Hopefully
Yeah.
things will get to a point to where we can get out there soon. Or
Hear,
soon
hear.
enough to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Let us know what you've been working on. We heard a little bit about hood medicine, but for all the people tuning in on the stream, fill us in on what you got started there.
So, essentially, I'm a research scientist, and I went to MIT with Dolio. Earlier this year, I think we were just kind of watching everything unfold, and we realized just how important it was that somebody get messaging out to people who needed to hear it the most. So essentially, Hood Medicine is like a nonprofit sort of public health collective, and it's made up of scientists, hackers, and other assorted geeks. And we're all just dedicated to protecting Black and Brown lives during the pandemic, and beyond improving the health of minority communities across the nation. So our biggest mission is to sort of make sure there's a trusted voice for these communities, to explain the medical science behind the virus, to walk them through vaccines, and sort of answer people's questions and concerns, and also to really explain all the social distancing recommendations so that, people can make the right choices to keep their families safe. So that's kind of how it started. And we're just sort of building up a lot of like infographics and content for our social media channels to try to get information out to the people who are most vulnerable.
Nice.
So thank you for inviting me, because I'm like super excited to get started on that mission.
It's
Of
wonderful.
course,
to
we're
be
really
doing
excited
that
to
great
have this
work.
combo and find out more about it.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, definitely.
I didn't know. I don't think I can see like the questions or anything, but like if I guess
Yeah,
please you can
we'll let
tell
you know.
me
Yeah,
if anybody like
For sure.
Yeah, we'll shout them out. And actually, we had one earlier when we were talking about you being on, and Noli wanted to know about states that wanted to do their own testing, and I guess pissed off the president, and now we're not getting the vaccine or something. Question mark. So it sounds like she's just like not sure what's going on.
I'm sorry, states that didn't. What I don't think I
States,
understand.
She said the questions that she had was about states like hers, where they wanted to do their own testing on the vax, and because of that, pissing off the POTUS, they won't be getting the vaccine. And just as far as doing their own clinical trials, I think especially.
Oh, wow.
That sounds
Got
crazy
it.
to me, but I'm not saying that could not possibly be happening.
That's
Right.
totally within the realm of possibility at this point. I did not realize that was happening, but I guess I can't say I'm shocked.
Yeah, it does kind of sound like the thing that he would like talk about or threaten, but wouldn't actually be able to do. So
That sounds right to me as well. It feels, generally speaking, it seems like the local governments are doing a lot of the vaccine ordering. So it seems like logistically it would be difficult to prevent that from happening. It's not like he can put the kibosh on Pfizer distributing the vaccine to a county.
No, I don't think so. But unfortunately, what we have seen is that because of politics and other things that I can't explain here, we don't have time. He had passed on ordering doses earlier in this process. So now, there might be a shortage in the initial rollouts because, those after he passed on that, other countries are going to get those doses before we do. So that's frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
That's frustrating. But what I will say about that is good news is that even though obviously everyone's not going to be able to have a dose right off the bat, I think if we've learned nothing from this year is that we are not logistically set up to distribute paper clips to our population. So it's going to be like a process, right? But what's nice is that, I don't know if I should say if it's nice, but I think, the populations that probably are able to access it first are going to be the people that are probably at the highest risk in terms of their exposure. So it's going to be like the essential workers and healthcare workers. And I think that's probably most important because they are on the front lines. And in general, building herd immunity in a population over time is going to take a while, right? So I don't think any of us should sort of be in a hurry. But I think they're working. I don't even know what's going to happen on January 20th. Who knows? But it sounds like the incoming administration has some coherent plans about vaccine distribution. So maybe we have hope once the transition takes place that there'll be more sensible regulation.
So herd immunity.
Sorry.
So no, go ahead.
No, go. Go ahead.
Well, herd immunity was one of the things that you teased in your blurb about coming on here. So I really want to get into that because I feel like it's been widely misunderstood. So I'm curious about your thoughts on what even the possibility of developing a sort of herd immunity is with a virus that people can get over and over and over again, with a vaccine that potentially might require, one or more doses every year for some significant portion of the population, I don't know that we would consider that we have herd immunity with the flu, even though we still, do have widespread vaccination. So is that even a reasonable thing to be aiming for? And if so, what does that look like?
So I think, first of all, one of the differences with the coronavirus is that we do kind of have a little bit of information about it from SARS, right? So it's not as it's a little more stable than the flu virus. The flu virus mutates a lot, right? And that's why we have sort of a different strain, different vaccine strains every year. And I think because of all the work that's been done in coronaviruses before this happened, we knew about how the spike proteins that surround the viral particle, how they really drive sort of our immune response, or in the sense that that's the way that the virus gets into our cells, and so that is obviously the biggest therapeutic target right now, right? So what's nice about that is that there's a lot of information out there, and obviously there's a lot of cool new vaccine development technology, and sort of the mRNA vaccines that they're using now more easily adaptable than a traditional vaccine, right? Because if we think about the way traditional vaccines work and the way that we think about them generally, you're injecting parts of the virus, let's say, little pieces of it with the vaccine injection in order to train your immune system to recognize it the next time that you get infected, right? But what's really cool and innovative about the new vaccines is that they use messenger RNA or mRNA to sort of just deliver a short code to your cells that tells them to produce those antigens that you would have injected, just produce the proteins, and then they still get taken to your immune system hub in your lymph nodes where everybody says, hey, look at this. Remember this next time you see this? So put it in your library. And so those memory cells remember without sort of having to have that traditional antigen exposure in that way. So it's more like sneaking a code to your cells to try to get that recognition in your system that way. And so it's a really cool sort of technology. Obviously, it's a novel virus, right? So we don't know much about it. We keep learning more every day about the long-term symptoms and all of the different organ systems that it affects. So I would say, let's be reasonable. It's going to take years before we really know a full picture of, how it affects the body and what long-term effects of illness are. And so one of the challenges is that as we've seen, just the natural and people just naturally getting infected, that memory, let's say, is not being retained over time, right? So it's not long-lasting immunity that we're seeing because obviously there's been some, reports of, reinfection. Again, it hasn't been long enough that we could really get good data on that, but they've been able to show at least that there's some effectiveness with the 2 doses. It's so hard to gauge, right? Because the virus is new, the vaccines are new. We'll know in a couple of years, right? But as far as the efficacy, it looks really good. The Pfizer virus and the Mrna virus, they're reporting sort of 95% efficacy. And so I guess I should probably break that down, sort of what that means, because when we think of efficacy, right, that's sort of a clinical measure. It's a measure that pharmaceutical companies, it's a measurement that they take because they want to be able to put it in a report and give it to the FDA and prove this works. Can we put this on the market? So for example, with the Pfizer vaccine, so they opened their trial and they vaccinated 50,000 people approximately. And so it's all random, right? Even for the researchers, they don't know who gets what. It shouldn't, blind. Right? It should be blind, yeah. Ideally. So randomly, some people get the placebo and some people get the test vaccine. So they administered the test vaccines, and then there's an observation period, obviously. And so they had set, before this trial started, a threshold of how many people needed to get sick before they sort of were able to calculate the statistics, right? So in this case, I think it was 170. That was their golden number, right? So once 170 people out of those 50,000 reported testing positive for the coronavirus, they were okay, pause. We need to do the stats on these people and figure out what that therefore means the efficacy of our test vaccine is. So of those 170 people, right, 162 of those people had gotten the placebo. and then only 8 had gotten the test vaccine. So 162 divided by 170 is essentially like where they get the 95% calculation from. And what it means is that if you got the test vaccine, then you only have a 5% chance of getting the virus compared to the people that got the placebo, right? So that's where the calculation comes from. So that's how they're able to infer that it's 95% efficacious, right? But efficacy is a little bit different from effectiveness. So effectiveness is more the real world term. So that's, how well it works in the larger population over time, right? And so I guess in particular for us, what we're concerned with communicating to people, well, it's a myriad of things really, but so for us, it's like, we know that in terms of effectiveness in the real population, in the real world, people's underlying health conditions and obviously also their genetics affect how effective this is going to be over time. And so unfortunately, like, this is sort of one of the frustrating conundrums of this whole scenario, because there weren't a lot of Black people in the trials, right? And we know there's a lot of reasons for that, obviously, because there's a lot of mistrust, let's say, in the Black community towards the medical community. There's been a lot of unethical human research over America's past, and obviously a lot of Black and brown communities don't even have access to medical care and vital services, let alone get equitable medical care in this country. So it's understandable completely why they're having such a hard time signing Black people up for the clinical trials. No matter how important it is that your clinical trial group reflects the entire population that you're trying to model. We know that as scientists, that the clinical trial group should look like your general population, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But unfortunately, because of the circumstances of historical, bias and I guess corruption, abuse, what is the word? And healthcare, it's been really difficult for them to recruit people for that purpose. And so, for example, MIT just released a report last week, I think, where they modeled they did machine modeling of all the new viruses that are coming out, and realized that there's a pretty high risk that it will not have good coverage for Black and Asian people in particular, likely because, they did not, take those kinds of things into account, and certainly probably didn't have the clinical trial group available, when they were designing the vaccine. So that part is a little frustrating for a lot of reasons, because, it's kind of part of what we're doing here is trying to give people information that they'll never get anywhere else. And so it's frustrating because there's so many things that I think that as a scientist I want to encourage, but as a Black scientist, as a Black person, it's extremely difficult. Even as I'm saying this, it makes my skin itch to even think about suggesting that we all go sign up for a clinical trial. Doesn't mean that that's rational, considering the integrity of the trials and the rigorousness of the science. It's not rational, but there's always that sort of trauma response. It's just like, ugh, here we go again. And there's been a lot of that talk kicking up lately about the Tuskegee experiments, all that kind of stuff, and I don't think we should lose sight of that.
Yeah, I personally was even more skeptical, like even prior to the pandemic. I was especially skeptical of the new fad over the past few years of commercial availability of genetic testing and
Really?
cataloging and collecting of genetic material.
Yeah.
But
Skeptical of that.
But why? What's your trepidation about it?
well, the data, the person, like the part of me that is known for cataloging and analyzing data knows that almost invariably these things will always get weaponized.
Yeah.
Even things like nuclear power was intended for a generation of electricity, but what it ended up being used for is the most destructive force we've ever encountered on the planet.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. That's the challenge, I suppose, of living in this particular universe.
We do have some discussion on the Facebook chat. A couple people talking about side effects.
And
TJ saying that TJ hasn't heard about side effects for the vaccine, which actually makes them more unnerved because they're used to seeing, a long list of side effects for any drug commercials and whatnot. And they're worried about, you have some testing of the vaccine, but not for the long term. So if there's some kind of long-term effect that we're going to see later.
Right. And of course, we literally cannot have that longitudinal data yet because even the virus itself is not even the age of a toddler. So it's been around for so little time, right? There's babies that can't walk yet that are older than this virus, that have been amongst human beings longer than this virus has. So that's a great question.
I did grab some stuff off. I grabbed some info about the side effects because I figured people might be interested. So, so I think for the most part, there have been a couple deaths, but they're sort of spread between the placebo and the test group, and mostly in sort of aged people. So they're right now, based on the statistics, attributing that to natural causes. But I'll just say that for due diligence. And most of these seemed like cardiovascular events. Like they were older. And so it was like some cardiac arrest and a stroke and myocardial infarction. So, but they, the FDA has clarified that none of those deaths were deemed related to the study intervention. And that's probably, again, because of the ages of the people and sort of their background and so they were able to sort of rule that out as being causal, like from the test vaccine.
TJ brings up when he asked the question, or he or she, I don't know TJ's gender, so I don't want to misgender, but TJ brings up the beginning of the movie I Am Legend. So to take that on head on, like what is the likelihood?
Come on, zombie friend.
What is the likelihood that this vaccine will lead to people becoming insane zombies?
Zero. I'm gonna go with 0.
Okay.
Seems like a good choice.
Sorry.
Zombies, though, y'all. The great thing is that it's probably going to happen to Russia first, since they're already.
That's a good point.
I have 2 things to say about this. First of all, oh my God! First of all, I just realized that you're in the good place.
Yeah.
That's amazing. First of all, if it were the zombie virus, the way some of y'all act, you would eat your whole family because you can't sit at the crib and do what you're supposed to do. First of all, if it was a zombie virus, you would all eat your families because you don't know what to do, obviously. But
yeah, a lot of people died of a zombie bite.
But right, all of y'all We know that you're hiding a bite under your shirt. Anyway, so no, but like this, the mRNA viruses, you know, I was talking about how it gives your cells like a little cheat code to go tell your immune system, you know, what's up with the virus. But the way they're designed, after they deliver that message, is kind of like, you know, in Star Wars, where like, you know, the little thing pops up, it's like, help me, Obi-Wan. Then it just like goes away, you know? And so the signal dies, so then it's over after that. It degrades, and there's no further action after it tells your cells to produce the protein. So there's not a lot of chance that this is going to happen.
If this COVID thing just like keeps on hanging around, then what's this vaccine supposed to do? Make us feel better for an hour or two?
No. That, like I said, we'll have to sort of bear out what the long-lasting immunity is over time. But for now, that, you know, with the 2 doses and possibly boosters in the future, no, the point of any vaccine is to teach your body to remember, so that the next time your body has what it needs to fight it off. Right now, none of us have been exposed to COVID. It's new. It's never been around, right? So none of us have any immune memory towards it in that way. So with any hope, you know, over time, it's hard to say because, right, you know, like I said, with the natural infection, we're not seeing like lasting immunity. They're saying with 2 doses of the vaccine, we should, you know, have effective protection over time. But I guess that's kind of the point of, you know, sort of getting back to the herd immunity, is that the whole point of, first of all, social distancing and isolation and all of that is to prevent the spread, right? So all of you idiots who keep hanging out and going to parties and going to the club and eating at restaurants with your mask off, even though they're open, so is your mouth.
Yes.
You know, all of those people doing that, you help in the virus.
Right.
The virus needs hosts. Viruses are different than other pathogens, like bacteria or something, for example, which can survive on its own for billions of years. You know, viruses need hosts. They're parasitic. So thank you to everyone at Applebee's who keeps giving it more hosts. You know, like, that's what it wants to do, is propagate through the population, so that the more y'all gather, the more chances it has to do that. And so with the vaccine, how that turns the tide very slowly over time is that, for example, like now, when there's no vaccine, as we can see, if we're all in a herd, in a group somewhere, and somebody's infected in that group, when we all leave that place, there is nothing protecting us from also getting infected. And I'm talking to all of you guys with no masks, or just the mask hanging off your nose. There's nothing protecting you from getting infected if you're in that scenario, right? But once people start getting vaccinations, so then next time, then, you know, in that same scenario, if the majority of that herd or that crowd that you're in, right, has been vaccinated, then if there's one infected person in that herd, the virus isn't going to have that much of a chance to spread around that crowd, because the person sitting next to them might be vaccinated, so it's not going to spread to them. Not, you know, like, we're talking about proximity, right?
Wow, the micro herd immunity argument is not something I've heard before. I like that a lot. That's a really important point. The micro herd immunity.
Yes.
Right here in our herd, as opposed to the national or global herd.
Yeah.
So would it be
the global herd? That's going to be a minute. We don't even have to talk about that tonight. That's going to be a minute.
Like, would it be safe to assume that if people are actively spreading the virus, as far as like, you know, having these super spreader type events where huge crowds of people are getting infected in single events. Does that increase the likelihood of a mutation?
For sure. Thank you, Dolio, for that salient point. Yes, that's my point. The more you let this virus propagate uncontrolled, unmitigated through all of y'all at the Cracker Barrel, the more hosts it has to replicate within. And here's the thing about viruses and why they can't survive on their own, because they don't really have their own cell machinery like we do. A virus is essentially a piece of DNA or RNA encased in a protein. And sometimes in this case with little spikies on it to sneak into your cells, right? So its whole purpose in life is to enter your cells and then trick your cell into making its DNA, right? And so then once you do that, it starts using your cells to make what it needs to make more viral particles that you then sneeze on everybody in the Applebee's who don't have a mask on, okay?
Yeah.
So
but here's the thing about Cracker Barrel is dinner rolls are really good. And they have a store in the front with all these cute little things that might include a toy that has a microphone and speakers that are turned on, and you could just walk in and start talking on the microphone and putting on a show. I'm not saying that I've done that and there's video evidence on TikTok right now, but
I'm gonna need that link.
Yeah, everybody should follow Gangstagrass's TikTok because it is pretty crazy. A lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the thing that concerned me the most with I guess the blatant disregard for safety, because most people would figure that they're pretty healthy and that their immune systems would eventually fend it off. And I'm like, that also ignores the fact that, hey, you might have vulnerable people in your household or in your circle or in what would have been your bubble if you were actually adhering to that.
Yeah.
Was that by spreading and propagating the virus, you increase the likelihood of mutation, which would mean that any vaccine that came about may be less effective because by the time the vaccine got distributed, you're dealing with a new version.
Sure. So anyway, sorry, back to my point about the the viruses. So basically, yes, they're highly prone to mutation because all they have is like either a little strand of RNA or a couple strands of RNA or a strand of DNA. And so maybe unlike our cells, maybe a little bit more sophisticated, there's a lot more chance for error when our cells are copying the viral transcripts, right? And so that's how the mutations happen over time. I feel like I feel like there probably will be some of that, and there will be like COVID seasons, like we have flu seasons now. But
a question about that.
My understanding is, go ahead.
This is COVID-19, so it's the 19th COVID. So how fast?
No. It's named after the year.
It's from the year
2019.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
we had the same trouble when we licensed one of our songs to be in a trailer for Farming Simulator 17 video game. We were like, there's been 16 Farming Simulator video games, but no, it was 2017 edition. But
it's the
COVID is like an offshoot of the common cold, right? It's similar to it.
Coronavirus is a kind of common cold, but COVID-19 is not an offshoot of.
I feel like the common cold is a rhinovirus.
There are lots of different common colds. Yeah. Some of them are coronaviruses. Some of them are rhinoviruses. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing I'm trying to get to, what did COVID-19 mutate from, and how fast has it been already mutating?
Oh, I see. I guess what should I say about that? So I don't want to make it seem like it's just like crazy mutating. Like it's not as unstable as, let's say, HIV, which is almost impossible to target with therapeutics because of how much it mutates.
Can I real quick drop a fact about coronaviruses that's so fascinating? They have an editor. They have an editor such that it actually that's why like influenza doesn't have that, and that mutates really rapidly. But coronavirus mutates much slower because it has this editor that basically, if a mistake is made in the replication, the editor oftentimes will fix it so that it goes back to what it was. Sorry, please go on.
Which is what we also have. Which,
interesting.
But I feel like the in our cells, and I think that like I was saying earlier about like the spike proteins kind of being the target of some of the the vaccines. That may be what sort of helps with the sort of stability of targeting it, because those are maybe a little more conserved, let's say. So I feel like there is an issue with mutation, but from what I understand from all of the vaccine trials and the studies, it's they feel like the vaccine has good coverage, even though, in spite of the natural amount of mutations that you would expect. Except that the reason why it doesn't have good coverage for certain ethnicities is because of the way that they design sort of what proteins it would produce, and the way that the receptors on our immune cells are different based on our ethnicity. So that's part of the reason why there's not predicted to have good coverage with Black people and Asian people. But these are just the first rounds that they've like tried to hurry up and get to market to try to mitigate our refusal to do the right thing. So
people have had a lot of confusion about masks as well.
Hundreds of other vaccines out there now. Sorry, what'd you say? Rench?
People have had a lot of confusion about masks too. I've seen a lot of people debating masks' effectiveness and whatnot, with a lot of people not really figuring out what to think from all the different information they're getting.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess one of the more prominent examples of a coronavirus, not COVID-19, but a coronavirus in fact was the SARS outbreak. But I kind of feel like the reason why the SARS outbreak didn't become a massive pandemic was because of the quick action of containment.
Yep.
The countries that were most affected by SARS pretty much universally adopted a mask mandate.
Interesting. Weren't SARS and MERS also somewhat less contagious? Like COVID is unusually contagious.
Yeah, it's highly contagious. I don't know the reason why off the top of my head. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean,
but I can follow up with that.
We were also dealing with, unfortunately, I didn't want to politicize it any more than it has been.
Do it.
But it also seems as though when the SARS outbreak happened, there was more of a respect of science.
Come on now.
General,
yes.
By leaders of the various countries, because it wasn't isolated to the United States as far as distrust of science and scholars and education and just facts in general. We're also seeing such blatant disregard for science and fact in places like the UK, Brazil. And these were also countries that seem to have had super spreader mentalities adopted en masse, where people basically just thumb their nose to the existence of any type of scientific authority. Not even to think about it as authority, but just scientific advice,
Yes.
Just complete disregard for, I don't care, I'm just going to do this. And when you have the leaders of nations disregarding the people that they themselves designated to be the authorities of these things, who say, hey, this is what you need to do to contain this, people are going to be skeptical of what is even true or real or factual.
Yeah.
It's worth repeating anytime this comes up that the scientific community has been warning us about the possibility of this for quite a while, which is why George W. Bush established a pandemic response team of some sort. Obama kept it going and funded it, and in 2018, Trump disbanded it. Obviously, that was a big mistake.
Yeah, he also canceled a massive order for PPE that was to be addressed because it had been depleted during the SARS outbreak.
The National Strategic Stockpile, yes, which was left
which is why
depleted.
there was a mad dash for PPE when this outbreak happened, because they were like, "Hey, no, we don't need that."
Yeah, and
Those eggheads don't know anything.
It is true that the National Strategic Stockpile was depleted under the Obama administration and was not refilled, but that is not a reason for the Trump administration not to have refilled it. That's the kind of thing we should have all the time, and we have so much more data now as to exactly what we need in such a stockpile. It's not just the PPE, it's the swabs and the tubes, and you need all of the pieces to be creating vaccines en masse. Like all of that we need to be thinking about in there.
Right. Yeah, this isn't a problem you can throw paper towels in.
There isn't a problem you can't throw paper towels at. I feel like it's the motto of this administration. So.
I would like to report. I'd like to report from the chats going on. A lot of props going out to Dr. Neecey for explaining viruses and stuff in a way that people can understand. Aww. So we got a lot of compliments coming in.
That's what we're here to do, you guys.
And Hey Don't Major actually suggests we try duct tape.
Gaff tape.
We
Definitely
found
gaff tape.
tape to be quite effective.
Gaffer tape, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like in response to what you were saying, Dolio, first of all, I would like to invoke the 36 Chambers of Wu by saying, cash rules everything around me. And that's one of the biggest problems I feel like is just in general with human civilization is that we have replaced every responsibility that we had to each other with commodity. And everything that we're doing now is in order to preserve this esoteric notion of the economy. I don't know who's going to buy all of their wares when we're all dead, but nothing that anyone on this globe is doing right now is in the interest of preserving human life. But let's be clear, that's not usually what any of them are interested in ever. So we shouldn't be surprised that we're not prioritizing that right now.
I want to bounce off of you with that because something that I'm not fully updated on everything that's going on with the vaccines, but it felt like we were having a week or two ago a debate about which vaccine we would use. And I'm not really understanding why we went with Pfizer, because Pfizer is the one that we have to keep in cold storage, meaning it's a little bit more complicated to administer to everybody or by supply line. And I also know Pfizer is a company that has more push and pull within the government. Is that a reason why we went with Pfizer and didn't just wait for some better options? Because it seems like better options are coming out. I just don't know why we went with Pfizer.
My understanding was there are still all three vaccines possible. I don't know if only one has gotten the emergency use authorization, but my understanding is all three of the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the AstraZeneca, two of which, the Pfizer and the Moderna, are the mRNA vaccines.
Yep.
Yeah. So all three are still options as far as I know. But actually,
didn't we only order Pfizer? I'm only hearing about orders of Pfizer.
Well, I mean, I know in the county, my mom works for the health department in a county nearby, and what they have ordered is the Pfizer vaccine. But I mean, they had to do some massive other ordering in order to make that happen, right? Giant freezers that can go to -70, which is a serious thing, and most places aren't going to do that. So I'm also curious to jump onto what Farrow's asking about what are you can you explain what the difference is between, say, the Mrna and the Pfizer vaccine, that even though they're both mRNA vaccines, that the Pfizer one needs to be in ultra low temperature storage, whereas Mrna only needs to be in like normal low temperature storage?
I'm not sure about the cold chain aspects, actually. I would imagine it probably has to do with the delivery vehicle, in terms of what it's in. I think probably, obviously they're mRNA viruses, so they kind of have to be stored cold or else they'll degrade, which is going to be a huge challenge for distribution. But I think the reason why everyone is more interested in getting that is because they're just more efficient. Like, it only takes about a couple weeks to generate a batch, whereas with a traditional vaccine, even though the distribution ends might be easier because a lot of those, don't have to be stored cold, or shipped cold for that matter. But the development process takes months, right? Because they're using, either chicken eggs or cells to grow it, and it's just harder to scale up and to adapt, if you can imagine, in terms of the logistics. So it's a trade-off, right? Because like the other virus is a challenge in the distribution, but I think because of its efficacy and the novelty of it and how it works, it's probably more optimal than the others, I guess I would say. I hope that answers your question. I can look into cold storage and follow up.
We will definitely love to have you back anytime. So yes, by all means, feel free.
Okay, good, cool.
We do have Wendy on the Facebook chat saying it's the protein that the vaccine is housed in that requires the temperature
so that
control.
Was so what
Okay.
Neecey was saying, right? It's the what it's being transported in. So
Yeah,
not talking about like the
when you
it's
said
the
delivery the delivery vehicle, I'm thinking like
Like
are
a
they
truck.
bringing it to me in a
Right.
Gremlin hatchback?
No, not
Right.
the truck.
No, that
not
was-
the truck. My bad.
And Anais in the Facebook chat also asked if the vaccine has to be stored in cold temperatures, would that have an impact on the body when injected? And my understanding is that it's just that for long-term storage, it needs to be stored
it's just
at
for
that
storage.
ultra low
It's just so that it doesn't
When
degrade.
it actually goes into the body, it's at room temperature or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Yep.
So
No,
don't worry, you're not going to get the hypothermia or anything from the vaccine.
No.
Yeah, you're not gonna get turned into a White Walker when you. Now I guess with all the studying, with all the focus being on the vaccines and inoculations, etc. Have there been any major developments towards treatment for those that would, I guess, fall into risk groups that could not necessarily take advantage of a vaccine?
I think they're trying, some things that we already have sort of approved. They're sort of trying to repurpose other drugs to see if they're effective, some other antivirals. But I would say that development process is an even longer process than the vaccine. So it's going to be probably a while. I think for now, it's just so hard to say because it's, the people that fall ill, we don't even, like I was saying earlier, we don't even really know all of the issues. And as we've heard time and time again from, the medical community, people will come in and just rapidly deteriorate over a period of days. So I feel like the biggest sort of focuses of therapeutics would have to be kind of figuring out when to intervene, or maybe when it's too late to intervene. And then also there might be, I'm sure there's, it looks like there's some differences between like whether the virus sort of attaches to your cells in the upper respiratory system versus the lower. And there's just so much to figure out there. So no, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of headway. I think they're just trying to like repurpose things that we already have to see if they work. Except maybe whatever that drug is that Trump and Giuliani got or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, because it definitely seems like those who have access to, I guess, the upper echelon of care at least have a better chance of fighting it off.
But isn't that the whole point of what we're talking about? That's the whole point of everything in the world.
Yeah. And also getting tested earlier and finding out sooner.
We're connected to a number of people in our circles who have contracted and been affected by the virus, some of whom didn't quite make it, others who have come out of it, others who are still suffering symptoms months later.
Yeah.
And some seemingly don't necessarily exhibit symptoms, after, a few weeks or so. It just, with all the uncertainty surrounding what, the short and long-term effects of the virus and how it affects different people based upon, I guess the robustness of their existing immune systems or viral load, even not knowing that stuff. It's just
right. And if you think about it, like, we have, I'm sure they're, collecting data from patient care and stuff like that, but our system is overtaxed. So overtaxed, like just at its bursting limit. And I guess I want to pause and make that other point about just tying it all in of, why it's so important for people to isolate and really practice social distancing and really keep that discipline, because, and I know it's not a sensible appeal, because in the where we find ourselves as a civilization, as we can see, it is completely ineffective to ask people to give a shit about their fellow man, and in that way stay at home and try not to infect everybody. They don't care. Like, I guess with hood medicine, we kind of take the approach of trying to encourage people to save yourselves, just because we don't know anyone who cares about their neighbor at this point from evidence, so it's just like the point of like staying isolated isn't just about not giving the virus free rein to propagate and mutate throughout the entire population of the United States of America, but it's also about our overtaxed healthcare system. If you, like right now in Indianapolis, I feel like we only have like a smattering of ICU beds. If you get into a car accident, you know what I'm saying? If you have a heart attack, COVID is just, it's dominating that triage in a way that, people are making like different decisions. There's different calculus now about who lives or dies because of the bed shortage. And it's just crazy to me that people think it's a farce or a conspiracy or a joke, because if that's, the case, there's a lot of hoaxes in the morgue overflow parking lot right now. You feel me? Like they don't have enough. What we're talking about cold storage. They don't have cold storage for the body.
Refrigerated trucks.
Like, so everywhere. It's not just about people like obviously not giving a shit whether or not they infect their grandmother, next door neighbor, coworker, whatever. It's it's also about the fact that you making it hard for everyone, including yourself. Any of us, I could get off the call right now and get hit by a bus. And we just don't think about it in those terms. Everyone's still thinking about, the COVID cases, this and that, whatever. But no one's really thinking about what that means.
Don't do that, though.
We keep acting crazy. The map keeps getting redder. And it's going to get to that point where we're starting to, make some questionable decisions about who lives or dies because y'all can't stay in the house. I'm frustrated about that. It's actually how healed medicine got started, because my husband was tired of me yelling at people in the grocery store, and he said I needed to find a different platform.
Yeah, productive outlet for that, yeah.
Shout out to Molly D for contributing.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Got some tips coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
go ahead,
just
Dee.
from our talks about masking up and getting the words out, different how to get the messaging right to get people to actually, adhere to it, not as a mandate, but as just something for self-preservation.
I feel like there's levels to that shit.
It's like treat the mask like it's a vest and they out there shooting.
Hey, it's levels to the shit though, right? Because I feel like in general, I mean, obviously there's like a whole group of assholes who never wear masks anywhere. And then there's another level where it's like probably the majority of us, wear masks routinely when we're at the grocery store or wherever, going about our daily lives. But the real problem and the real places where people are spreading disease is in your home. Here's what people don't understand and clearly don't have the discipline to do is it's fine if you wear a mask to the grocery store, you should. But if then you come home and you let people from 3 or 4 different households come over and chill with you with no mask on, that's what I want to communicate to people is that the virus does not care who your homies are. You know what I mean? Like, the virus is looking for another host. Doesn't care if it's your mom or your best friend or somebody that you met on Grindr. I don't fucking know. No, it doesn't care. Whoever you invite into your house and they take their mask off, it's just like sex, right? It's just like the way that we took so fucking long to adopt condom usage, right? We need to think about it in the same way that COVID is removing all those levels of intimacy, where all you need to do is just breathe in the same space as another motherfucker, and you could, oh my God, and you can get infected, right? And so it's like, to me, it's like people need to think about it in the same way they think about STDs. Like every single person that you sleep with, you are exposed to every single person they've ever slept with, right? Whatever diseases and googly bugs they have, you have, right? Yep. If you didn't protect yourself. And then we need to think about it in the same way, because every single time that you talk to somebody outside of your household with no mask on, you breathing in their spit and the spit of everyone else they've talked to with no mask. You feel me? And even now that we're going into the winter months, I need you to know that even if you're inside with no ventilation, after a couple minutes, y'all still breathing the same air, whether you got masks on or not.
Yep.
That's why you need to stay in your own house. Breathe your own air. You know what I'm saying? We got Zoom. We got the technology, and people just are not taking it seriously enough because in their minds are thinking, oh, well, I'm still gonna go see my mom and I'm still gonna let my friend come over for a potluck. And it's just it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I need people to understand that it spreads in your spit, and your sneezes and your coughing and your spit. Okay, so if you want people to spit in your face all day, then do it. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's hard to imagine because, it's weird for us because we've never had to be this protective, right, about ourselves, about just our breath. Mm-hmm. But I need you to understand the way air travels. You feel me?
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
When you breathe, your hot breath, you know what I'm saying? When people are close to you, can smell when their breath is funky. You know when they accidentally spit on your mouth. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You try to pretend like you didn't feel it, and you try to.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? you should know just from, I don't even have to talk to you about science for you to understand that you spit on people when y'all talk, you know? And I also, you don't have to know anything about science to know there are 2 breathe holes in your face, right? And both of them need to be covered up if you want them to be protected. That ain't science.
Yes.
You feel me?
This is real. This is getting
That ain't
real.
science.
You can't walk around raw dog in the world at the Cracker Barrel. Raw dog.
It's getting real right now. Yeah.
At the Applebee's, raw dog. At the salad bar, raw dog.
Real talk.
Wow.
Real talk.
It is though, and I'm curious about the messaging on this too, because you know, we know from the science that you don't just get this virus by breathing it in. You can touch your orifices, or even you can get infected through the eyes. So
totally.
You know, and
which is why
the
I
virus,
was wearing goggles on the plane.
Exactly. Dolio looked like something out of Burning Man, and so you know, and even though the mask prevents large droplets from coming out of your mouth, there's still what's coming out in the air, coming out the sides, and you know, and that virus can hang in the air even after what it was suspended in is gone, and that's floating around in that shared air. So, you know, how do you get that piece of the messaging out? It's like, does it kind of require just telling people, no, it's all about your safety because you only care about you, even though really so much of it is about preventing those droplets from getting out in the first place, and about staying in your house and staying out of other people's air and not sharing that air.
And Betty Lynn is actually
oh, Betty Lynn, hey.
She's actually bringing up a good point, is that cool, dry air that we're getting in the winter time also allows for the virus to hang in the air for longer periods of time. So that 6 foot distance no longer as a safe.
Well, and the 6 foot was never safe.
MIT published at the beginning of the epidemic. There's 27. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I don't even like 27 because I'm like,
if you're inside.
What's that song where like, give me 50 feet? I don't even know what lyric that is, but I need 50 feet, the whole feet.
And like,
who is it? I can't even think about it. I know.
We had a lot of songs back in the day that involved getting out of each other's personal
like
space.
move, bitch, get out the way. We could think of a couple. Yeah. Thank you, Sleeves, for putting a fine point on that. But you're absolutely right. It can absolutely get in your eyes. I insist that we all wear our glasses when we go out, anywhere. And
I'm getting my prediction together right now.
It's just I can't even get y'all to put a mask on, so I can't think about the goggles right now. Like, I need y'all to cover the nose. Can you at least cover your nose? And then we can talk about the goggles. You feel me? So, and not only that, but your mask needs to be tight. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, and that's what's a little frustrating about, you know, things like, about things like, I love it. What does that say?
It says Gangstagrass.
Oh my God, I need one. I need one immediately.
Handmade by Mama Sleeves.
Yeah.
Mama Sleeves is in the Twitch chat. We got Mama Sleeves in the house, so props there.
But yeah,
but you need to understand that, especially now. Especially always. You shouldn't be sitting indoors with people, whether you have a mask on or not. Stay in your own space. Your bubble. Here's what I want you to know about bubbles. Your bubble is your domicile. Your house, the air that exists in your house, whoever breathes it with you, that's your bubble, right? And what's unfortunate is that people, I don't think, realize that, you know, there's also like, you know, the social bubble construct where obviously it's not practical in a lot of cases to completely isolate, right? We know that. But I just don't know how that social bubble contract works because I don't see anybody doing what they're supposed to do. So I personally have not felt comfortable establishing a social bubble with anybody because I don't trust none of y'all.
No, people say they're
it
isolating,
takes-
and then
all
you
it
find
takes
out that
is
they're at
one-
the grocery store or they're
Right,
riding
all
on the
right.
metro.
Yeah, all it takes is for one person out in that bubble to not adhere to the contract,
Exactly.
and then your whole bubble.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even like it bursts. You know what I'm saying? Like it expands infinitely.
Yes.
Until your bubble include the damn near the whole city, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, everybody you come in contact with is also who they came in contact with and who they was talking to
Right.
and who they was talking to. So what your bubble does is expand.
One person
Infinitely.
went to a restaurant with one person whose dad went to a Trump rally.
Yes.
Right.
There you go.
And you should
And-
not be friends with that person.
And somebody at that Trump rally likes to lick the PIN number pads at the supermarket. So
Oh.
Doesn't
we
always
saw
come
what
back to
happened in
licking
New
things.
You know, one swingers convention, and
What on earth?
I'm like, what the hell? I guess they couldn't get their deposit back. I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Well, and that's actually that comes back to something that Dolio mentioned briefly, and is much more serious than the swingers convention, but is the idea of viral load. You know, how much are you exposed, right? So if you walk past somebody and happen to have a breath where you both have your masks on and and maybe you're exposed to the teeny tiniest bit of COVID, the evidence seems to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the evidence seems to be suggesting that you're very likely to have, if you do catch it, that you're from that very likely to have a more mild case than if you're like sitting in an office day after day or for many hours and you're being exposed like long term over a long period of time over several hours or several days to the virus.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Imagine your body wouldn't have to create as much antigen to fight it off if you don't necessarily have as much in you.
And it would have a chance, your body would have a better chance at it, I'm guessing, because, if there's more of the virus in you, then there's more to be replicating. So it's a much bigger fight to fight. Whereas if your body, like with the vaccine, it's the idea that you're trying to get a safe exposure to it, a relatively safe exposure to it so your body can recognize it. So that's kind of why, potentially a smaller viral load might be a less dangerous thing. Any amount could be dangerous for anybody.
Right.
I mean, all of that is just assumptions on my part. So I'm just, since this is all new to everyone.
I will say also that actually just I don't know, this week maybe Nature published an article on how the investigators are taking lessons now from how children's immune systems are able to evade COVID, which I guess is the one positive in a way, because I know for myself, I have kept my children out of school this whole time, and I just was so frustrated more than anything going on with this virus that we insist on making them go back to school. And putting them in harm's way, and that there's so many people who don't have the choice. But what's nice, I think, is that, or not nice, but I think it's good that, we're saying that they're saying that the kids' immune systems are sort of better equipped to eliminate it than our systems. It sounds like they are saying, go ahead.
I'm just hopping in. Is that to let your kids be running around without masks?
No, I don't understand how that shit works. Again, that's another thing that's driven by capitalism, not science. Like, I feel like, they just sort of suggested that kids under a certain age didn't need to wear masks, but I don't know what the scientific rationale behind that was. I think that was just not to piss people off, which is how we are making most policies. I don't let my children go anywhere without no damn mask.
Yeah, I mean, it could be their normal routine of disinformation. I mean, when this
Yeah.
virus first started popping out, they were trying to tell black people we couldn't get it.
What?
Right.
Really?
Yeah, that was the word on the street. It was like they was getting it. Yeah, they were like, we noticed that there is no incidence of, very low incidence of it in black populations, and they were basically trying to imply that we couldn't catch it. And then it was more so the fact that, you know, we're more apt to do things like wash our damn hands.
Interesting.
And stay out of your face. You know?
I mean, I think what they realized about children is that what they were seeing antibodies in children, but they weren't showing positive results on PCR tests, which is how they test for the viral DNA or RNA.
There's a lot of asymptomatic cases in the kids. Like my niece ended up contracting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but she was asymptomatic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, obviously they probably don't understand it completely yet, but it just sounds like they're able to resolve, their immune systems are able to resolve the virus before it replicates in large numbers, which is why they're not catching it on PCR, but the children still have antibodies. But there is that one sort of rare disease that they were seeing in children.
Yes.
With that like multi-organ failure.
Multi-system.
Thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, because
I don't think they figured that out yet either.
Because it's been affecting more than just people's respiratory systems. Because I know a lot of folks
It's circulatory.
Totally.
Yeah.
Been having kidney failures and what was the other thing?
I mean, heart, obviously.
Outbreaks
right.
In there because they're which gives them, they end up losing the ability to clean their blood.
Yeah.
Well, so you know how like COVID has spike proteins on the outside? So they find the cells that they want to attach to by finding like the right sort of lock that their key fits into, right? And in this particular case, that's the ACE2 receptor that they're always talking about. And, you know, I think in many cases it kind of starts off as a respiratory illness because that's where it usually enters the body. But there's ACE2 receptors in the brain, the lungs, the heart, the pancreas, the intestines, the liver, and the kidneys. So I guess it's not completely unreasonable to, you know, like understand why we're seeing like a lot of disparate effects in different people depending. And it sounds like they're saying that the number one indicator of sort of risk and susceptibility is cardiovascular disease. So, you know, obviously in cardiovascular disease, there's so many other sort of comorbidities that involve the liver and the kidneys and the pancreas, you know, and the heart. So it kind of makes sense to me that it would be so devastating across, you know, the entire organ system, which just again underscores how it just underscores my confusion at humanity, because even though there are people who get it and just sneeze and then feel fine the next week, some people get it and drop dead the next week. And I just maybe have a different risk tolerance than some of y'all, because to me, I'm not trying to take no chance. I ain't never won the lottery. I ain't even ever won a raffle ticket, a cakewalk. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't have good luck. I'm not trying to take them odds. I don't know. Maybe other people are comfortable like rolling the dice, like maybe I'll, you know, get multiple organ failure. I don't know. I'm set up different. I don't know.
My thing was I'm more concerned about the more vulnerable people in my circle. You know,
As you should be.
You know, I've had to mourn too many people during this pandemic period. You know, since this all quarantine started, I'm in double digits now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm tired of it. So it's like, okay, if there's any way to prevent this from affecting more people in my circle, at least, I'm doing everything I can.
I would hope that everybody would feel like that, but I just feel like because of the disinformation, because of all of the conspiracy theories and the flat out denial of the virus and the way that our current administration is feeding that propaganda and ridiculousness, it's just really unfortunate to me, because I feel like there's so many people who are gonna get sick and get their loved ones sick because they're assholes. You know, and there's so many people who just don't know and just, you know, don't get the right information, and then, you know, it's just hard. It's so hard to combat, you know, because it's like the scientists' voice are being drowned out. You know what I mean? And then like the one person like Dr. Fauci, I mean, I don't even know how he does it, honestly, because there's no way I could be in the press conference room and just sit there with my mouth quiet and not snatch the mic. It kind of makes me angry as a scientist, because even though I feel like we're getting some messaging, but it's really just like sort of news stories and stuff like that. But it's just like, I don't know, it just seems like between like all of the gagging of scientific organizations that Trump has done this entire administration, from the EPA to the USDA to obviously the CDC now, I just want a revolution. I want a group of scientists to be like, we not doing this shit. We gonna say what it is, and we're gonna let the people know. And
We've already seen what they're willing to do to scientists who do that. If you see what happened in Florida.
Yeah, I know.
And that was just a data scientist.
Well, it's gotten to that point now. It's just like, we don't have time. That's a bigger question. We don't have time.
That wasn't even like a a biologist or biologist. That was a data scientist.
Yeah.
Who was just, saying, okay, you're fudging the numbers even.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stand for it. And then they're like, okay, we're going to raid your house, point guns at your children, steal your kids.
I feel like we can't really dance around the issue that we are experiencing this pandemic within the context of this fascist ascendancy, right? We can't ignore that, because it colors everything that has happened, the way things have been handled, and the intimidation. I mean, if anyone is a student of history, that's the first thing that one should do is discredit the scientists and the thought leaders of your society, because there's no other way to make sure that the people are like focused in on your propaganda. Like if you discredit experts and you sow doubt and mistrust in the basic principles of science, this is what you get, and we can't ignore that the context of what we're experiencing is so heavily influenced by the blundering, callous, cruel neglect of governments in this country. That is why the map is red.
I want to paint a little picture that I saw recently. You're going to be a little bit mad at me, Miss Hudson, but I decided
Dr. Hudson.
I'm currently in Costa Rica. My family wasn't going to meet this winter. We decided it was a bad idea. I didn't want to see my mom or my grandparents, and we just thought that was the best idea. So I decided, well, how about I head somewhere where there's a little bit more sun. I didn't want to be in the winter. The numbers were getting pretty bad in Baltimore, and people just in the streets, just walking outside. People weren't like being distanced. Like you could see a lack of care in the street. So I was like, you know what? Like quarantine myself, get some things done. I had a bunch of tests before I left out, all negative. Head to Costa Rica, go to somewhere remote out here and isolate here for a bit. It was awful. It's the most, I thought this was I got stuck back in March on the West Coast. And when I had to take a plane back to the East Coast, there was barely anybody on the plane. This plane was packed. And I don't know why.
Look at my skin itch. Oh my God.
People have the cabin fever.
I'm over here, like, I'm glad I finally got here, but it wasn't, like, I don't know what was up with people. Like, it was.
Farrow, you were one of those people. What was up,
They're
Farrow?
probably thinking the same thing as you.
You're one of those people.
You're one of those people. The thing is, like, they were thinking the same thing. They were like, let me get the hell out of here. Because
I guess we all
because nobody's adhering to stuff around me. So let me get to somewhere where I can get some space between me and other people.
Yeah, it's a reasonable notion. I sure in the hell wish I had gotten my zombie bug out cabin together before now, but it's interesting though, because like when earlier in the summer, you know, we flew my eldest home from California from college because they were going to be virtual, and we had him come back here. And at the time, it was restricted. Like he said there were maybe 20 people on the plane. He had a whole row to himself, and then the rows were interspersed even. And it just seems like, I mean, if you've seen any of those pictures from like O'Hare Airport and JFK for the Thanksgiving season, I was just like, I wish it was the zombie virus so y'all would eat each other. Rid of stupidity.
Ultimate Darwinism.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Sorry.
Super
I was definitely
Darwinian.
on edge going home for my grandmother's funeral.
I have one conspiracy theory that maybe Dr. Neecey can address for just a minute.
What's that?
Seems like people on our chat tonight are all pretty on level, but I have seen this from some people taking off on the fact that these are new mRNA vaccines, to be like, oh no, these vaccines go in and change your DNA. I don't want my DNA changed by a vaccine. I'm not going to take that. And it's like,
hey, a virus is changing your DNA. You know what?
Can you just set it straight for a minute in case any of us come across this in the future? We can set somebody straight. What's the 1 minute version of how dumb that is?
And you can use the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can, for sure. Totally fine. As many times as you want.
Uh-oh, we just took the handcuffs off.
I know, right? Here's what the fuck I think about that. Right. So, okay, I don't even know where to begin. So, first of all, I guess in terms of the vaccine in itself, I get that, you know, it seems like everything's been pretty rapid. Like I've seen a lot of people being like, wait, but we don't have a virus for HIV and whatever else the fuck yet. So how do we do this?
Vaccine.
And I just want to like, what did I say? Virus?
Virus, yeah.
Whatever. Vaccine. Thank you, Sleuth. Keeping me in check since 1995. No. And the thing is that, you know, rapid vaccine development is not like a futuristic concept. Like they've done a lot of work over the past couple of decades to build vaccine development platforms that are rapid and sophisticated, and that's what this mRNA platform is all about. It would take longer to make, you know, more traditional viruses, but this, you know, we're trying to meet a particular extenuating circumstance of this pandemic, and the fact that y'all won't sit at home and give the scientists a chance to figure it out. Y'all want to get on the airplanes to go to Costa Rica and shit, so we can't figure it out in time. I'm kidding. No kidding, but you know, if you that's the same way that we're able to like meet the challenge of new flu strains every year. And like I said, like COVID-19 is not as unstable as some of the other viruses. And we know a lot about coronaviruses from the SARS virus. So it's not like we're completely blind. It's a new virus, but it shares a lot of characteristics with other viruses. And we have the technology now to build it up rapidly and scale it up. It's easier to scale up too, if you can imagine. And so I guess I understand people having trepidation, especially in like Dolio was mentioning, this like sort of anti-science era that we're in. There's so many, like when the anti-vaxxers first started, I thought surely this is not going to get any traction because like polio, but I'll be damned if polio ain't back. Fucking with y'all, polio back.
Smallpox.
Oh, is it pox? Smallpox? What? Yeah,
Smallpox
like
is
smallpox.
back.
Like
Polio's back.
They're all back.
what's the point of getting rid of COVID? Y'all just invited polio back to the party.
The
I'll be
bubonic
damned.
plague is back.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like in the
It don't make no
US
sense.
too, not
And
just
you
in
would think-
Mongolia.
You would think in an age when everyone is carrying a supercomputer.
I'll be damned.
Maybe we outsourced too much of our brain power. Maybe that's what happened. So okay, so it sounds like. Sorry, go ahead, Dolio.
No, go ahead.
It sounds like the short version is viruses change your DNA. Vaccines teach your body how to recognize the viruses that change your
not
DNA.
exactly change your DNA. It kind of bypasses it in a way. It supplants, you know, like in the cells that the virus infects, it's like, okay, give me your copy machine. I want to make my own copies, right? And so that's what really happens. And it's one of the ways that your body can like kind of receive, like your immune system receives signals that says, you know, I think that cell's been infiltrated, so we probably need to go, you know?
Right.
And so that's kind of what I mean. It doesn't change your DNA at all.
That's good. That's reassuring.
It's more like sending a warning to you that the guy is that somebody's gonna knock on your door and punch you in the face. So it's telling your body, hey, when you open the door, block your face. As opposed to just opening the door and getting punched in the face without expecting it.
That's an apropos analogy, I would say. That works.
Very nice analogy. We also had a question in the chat, and I have to say that even asking this question makes me feel dumber. But I'm sure they weren't serious, but it is a thing that many people are serious about. So can you put a microchip in a vaccine? Is that a thing that people ought to be concerned
about? Good night, everyone.
I'm
going to sign off now.
Both Dr. Hudson and I attended what is the nerd equivalent of Hogwarts.
Yes.
Totally, right?
And we can tell you, no.
Hold on. I want to say this. My uncle, he's a professor over at Rutgers, and he's been working on carbon tubes for a while, and like sending electrical signals through those carbon tubes. And they've made them so small that they are they're theorizing like micro machines that they can make. I'm not sure if they've gotten to that stage yet. They might
seriously doubt it
with designs, but you know, it's one of those things where they keep on missing funding because administrations change so much.
Well, the key thing here is, can they make little teeny tiny ninjas that could go in and like really fight the virus with, you know, weapons and stuff?
Here's my real answer to that question.
The problem is that they all end up joining the Foot Clan.
But I mean,
my real answer to that question is to just like go back to my aforementioned point about how we don't fund science, okay? we're not getting ready to get to that like extra futuristic, like whatever shit you dreamed up right now, because we can barely keep the lights on, okay? Because we'd rather fund war and genocide than science.
We'll fund Viagra.
Yeah.
Hey.
Because you can make money off of it.
Speaking of Viagra, I just saw something about like erectile dysfunction as being like a COVID
as a side effect. Yeah, like one of the potentially long term. I mean, we'll find out.
Maybe we should take this seriously after all.
Exactly. Now everyone will take it seriously.
One of our infographic campaigns might be about like your dick falling off. Maybe. Mm-hmm. It would be way more effective than anything else we've heard.
So much more effective.
Put your mask on, or else it'll mess up your pipe game.
Yeah, this is great. This is good. This is going to be effective, and everybody should do this.
That infographic needs to be a thing. Like, yes.
Definitely.
Might do it.
We will repost it. Send it to us. We'll put it everywhere we can put it. For sure. I'll get it to various health departments.
I just feel like there's so much disinformation that even if it's not exactly true, I still feel like cover your face or your dick might fall off would be like, it might nip that shit right in the bud, you know?
Start calling it COVID-19.
I don't know if it's true, but I'm not going to take the chance. Yeah, exactly.
What's going to really scare me? You got to get the sound of somebody's member dropping on the floor just right.
Mm-hmm.
Get that
just right. Thunk.
What does that sound like?
Oh, I feel like I just imagined
Foley artists listening to this. You gotta like drop like a wet banana on the floor or something.
No, we're not workshopping sounds. We're not workshopping sounds right now.
As long as it's followed by the Seinfeld bass line.
Farrow, we're getting you on
this.
With
Larry Blackman from Cameo going, ow.
There you have it, folks. Gangstagrass bringing you some very informative discussion.
Hitting the hard topics.
The science.
We're just trying to light it up a little bit.
So can I ask another serious question? I don't know if this is a thing that you'll be able to answer, but I'm curious about the whole mRNA vaccines, and I'm wondering, are we looking at potentially an mRNA vaccine for the flu in the future, or for other things? Is this or is this like kind of specific for some reason to a coronavirus?
Good question.
I think. And actually next time we do this, I might invite my colleague who is a virologist. But I think I took a note on that. I'm just trying to scroll and see if I find it. But
interesting.
And obviously it's not at my fingertips when I want it. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, is there are we looking at a future of potentially an mRNA vaccine for the flu, or maybe other things as well? Is that where this is headed, or is that for some reason more specific to coronaviruses, viruses like that?
Not necessarily like specific to coronavirus. I think that I think it depends on the virus's stability, maybe, because it sounds like from like some of the other like the rhinoviruses, like the flu and HIV, certainly, it's hard. I think it's harder to kind of for it to be effective across a broad swath of the population because of how rapidly it mutates. And I think it might just be that, part of what drove the prioritization of like mRNA vaccines for COVID was logistics, and in the sense that they needed something rapid, and there is a much shorter development window for an mRNA vaccine. And right now there's like, I think something like 130 other vaccines that are still at some stage of trials. These are just the first couple that have came through. So I suspect we'll probably know more about the answer to that, but I feel like that might be something I should follow up with.
Interesting, but it sounds like maybe we're looking at, in a couple years' time that we'll find that a egg-based COVID vaccine is actually better. We just needed to get something done quickly, so we went with this. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Maybe for some of us, we can get a ham and egg based vaccine.
No, not ham. Not ham.
Okay.
No. Only if it was turkey ham.
Turkey
ham and eggs vaccine.
Maybe if it's green.
Fork.
Some green eggs. Yeah.
Side effect. Actually, speaking of side effects, so one of the things that recently came out of the UK, they've been giving vaccines already, whereas we're just starting, like in the coming week or so. Was that they had 2 really severe allergic reactions, and such that the guidance came out of the NHS that any place that is giving the vaccine needs to have resuscitation equipment on site. So just maybe it might be helpful maybe to address that and let us know if that's something we should all be worried about, or just people who have really, really severe allergic reactions.
No, it's certainly for people who have that history, which does definitely include my kids. Like, they both have severe peanut allergies and have EpiPens and stuff like that. So I guess what I'll say in general is that that's technically a potential risk of any vaccine, right? But based on like sort of the numbers, I think they're trying to be careful about the messaging around it, because of course people are going to be like, focus on every little thing, which I don't want to seem like dismissive, but there's so many things that statistically aren't significant, in terms of clinical trials, but it doesn't. But in this case, I think it's important to put out the notification, because there are so many people that could fall into that category. I don't think that necessarily means that you should avoid the virus, but certainly take the recommendation that if you have...
Yeah, you should definitely avoid the virus, but you shouldn't necessarily avoid the vaccine. Yeah.
Oh my God, did I say the virus?
They both start with V's. It's fine. Everybody throughout this, whenever you heard somebody say virus when they meant vaccine, you know what we're talking about.
Oh my gosh. You shouldn't avoid it, but you should definitely tell your medical provider so that they are prepared, for sure. And then also, I think just maybe the other day, there was another briefing about how there were a few people who did develop Bell's palsy in Wisconsin, which is kind of like just like a weakness or like a freezing of your face muscles, which in general should be temporary. But again, because of this sort of statistical significance and the way that they infer causality in clinical trials, again, they're saying that it's still consistent with the expected background rate in the population. But I do think it's important that we're upfront and transparent about the allergic reactions and adverse side effects and any deaths, because especially in terms of like, maybe people who are immune compromised or other people that are contraindicated to take the vaccine right now, it underscores for the 17 millionth time how important it is that people take it seriously, continue with the recommended measures, and if and when they can, get the vaccine, right? Because the more people that are protected, the more it protects the vulnerable. That's the point of herd immunity, right? So, unfortunately, a lot of people in this terrible, terrible society that we live in honestly think that herd immunity means let's just let everybody get sick and drop dead, because then they'll build immunity. And it's just like, I don't think that's exactly how it works. It's like people have this notion that it just means that we should just, it's almost like the chicken pox, right? That we should just all, purposely expose ourselves. And it's just a little ridiculous, especially since chicken pox is by and large innocuous. And we have no idea, what the long-term health effects of this disease are.
That's right. And the fact that you can get it over and over again.
And it also ignores the fact that the reason why we tend to have what is perceived to be herd immunity from chickenpox is because the majority of us have already been inoculated.
Yep. Yeah. And not only that, but it's a completely different pathogen again, whereas you could be exposed one time and you're good, right?
Yeah.
For life. You might get it again when you're old and get shingles, but one time is all you need. You're good. And so it makes sense that back in the day people would have like chicken pox parties, slumber parties, or whatever the hell. But like, honestly, it happened. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's a terrible practice, right? Can you bring your kids over so they can itch with my kids?
This is the same. Yeah, you're talking about the same generation that used to put radium in their jewelry because it glowed.
Or give their kids mercury to
and
lose
they put
weight.
lead in everything too.
Yeah.
Or
and they used Lysol as a feminine hygiene product.
Oh, stop
when
now.
I saw that, I was just
Lysol started as a feminine hygiene product, people. What is wrong with
you? Should please Google the old ads for it. They are so terrible. Like they're basically like,
do you want her to
smell lemony fresh?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's so bad.
One more question on side effects. I know we're getting toward the end here, but
Sure.
I feel like this is pretty important. A lot of the reported side effects so far, both coming out of the UK and what data the local governments that are going to start giving, distributing these vaccines are seeing is basically like if you got the flu shot and you would get flu-like symptoms after getting the flu shot. So some people who are getting the vaccine are getting COVID-like symptoms, and I'm hearing that it's particularly pronounced again for those people who are experiencing it, which is not everybody, after the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. So if you could maybe clarify, are people actually being given the virus by the vaccine? Or, I feel like even with all our discussions of mRNA, that might not be clear. Like, is there virus in the vaccine? Are these people actually getting COVID? Is that what's happening? Or is it something else?
So what it's doing is giving yourselves like a little cheat code to produce the same little snippets, or more or less the same little snippets of the virus that you would have injected, right, to induce that immune response. So if you can, and then it proceeds from there. So all it does is kind of bypass you like exogenously like injecting yourself with the virus. Instead, you're telling yourselves to make little pieces of the viral particle in order to go take them to your immune hub and be like, hey guys, check this out. Please remember this next time you see it. But that process of like getting the cheat code, printing it out, and then people like running it over to the immune system and be like, hey, check this out. Like, this is crazy. Y'all need to like really like make sure you watch out for this. That process can feel the same as getting infected, right? Because it's still like your immune system kind of responding to that. And a lot of, like the kind of symptoms, I guess, that you would get are similar, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like they're giving you COVID. Like you're still you're exposed, and that's the whole point of a vaccine, is that you're exposing your immune system to the pathogen so that it remembers, right? And so it's almost like, you know, like, it's almost like, you know, like a Bond movie maybe, where like MI6 is like your immune hub, and like, you know, like whatever, like it gets like the little secret paperwork, like here's your mission if you choose to accept it. Is that Mission Impossible? I just totally sliced this movie.
Across the streams.
I wouldn't have known.
You know what?
Go
Whatever.
on. It's all good.
I'm going with it. Shut up.
Yeah.
Fanfic.
I think you just came up with the movie crossover that needs to be made.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, run with it.
But I mean, that's kind of like the point, right? But it's not a benign. It's not always a benign process, and which is why when you take a flu vaccine or something, you might feel under the weather for a couple of days, because it's still, your body's still going through that process of like the same thing it would do if you were naturally exposed. You're just artificially exposing yourself, because the whole point is to get that information to the hub so that next time your body remembers what that virus looks like, and it's like, oh, that's back. We need to go take care of that. So, yeah.
That's excellent. The only other thing that I want to know, feel free anybody else to jump in, is how do we support the Hood Medicine Initiative? You know, tell us more about that.
So our website is hoodmedicine.org, and we're at hood_medicine on all our platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Right now, we have a couple different initiatives that we're focused on with regard to like the public health campaign and the information around the virus. We're actually right now actively in the process of this whole like Hood Geek Seek campaign, where we are crowdsourcing a lot of our content. And there's been a lot of like sort of scientists and people who have signed up to produce a lot of our content. So right now, like Dolio is helping us like finalize all of the website and everything. There's like a landing page and, you know, and a place to donate. But we're sort of building all of this like huge like library of information for people. And so that's one of the things that we're doing if you want to get involved in terms of like helping. If there's other like nerdy good do-gooders out there that want to help us with that, you can sign up for that. And then a really passive way to support, we have a link on our site for Amazon Smile, especially going into the holiday season. You can just literally click and enter through our portal and just like shop like you normally would, and Amazon will give us a donation at no cost to you. So that's probably the easiest passive way to donate. But if you would like to donate directly, you can do that at hoodmedicine.org.
Now, I'm gonna ask you to leave off on a slightly different point here.
Let's do it.
Uh-oh.
So, you had a message about this vaccine that's about to roll out for the Black community. What would it be?
That's a really good question. So I guess what I would say is that let's acknowledge like the trauma response that we all feel when we hear that, you know, Black people are desperately needed for clinical trials and, you know, that kind of thing. First, what I want to say about that is a clinical trial is a service to humanity. And essentially, you're either going to be getting a placebo, which is usually saline anyway, or a text vaccine that might work and actually protect you. And it's super critical that we participate in this process so that they can develop a vaccine that covers our Black asses. It's completely unpalatable. It makes my skin itch just even saying that out loud, but there's a lot of Black scientists on the vaccine development teams, and I would hope that we would understand that as hard as it is to be a scientist in this country, I don't feel like we have been compromised yet. Vilified, berated, laughed at, but not compromised. I believe in the science, and I think it's rigorous and reliable, the methodology. And what I would say about these early viruses, in light of what the MIT study showed, is that I worry that if they aren't predicted to have good coverage in the Black community, that like it kind of makes me feel like I don't want to run out and get it. Don't quote me on that, because it's like I'm very conflicted giving any recommendations to the Black community, period. But I do feel like that, you know, if the clinical trials were done largely with white participants, and it seems like that it's really effective for them, and so many of them love to go to Applebee's with the mask off, that maybe the first couple of rounds they can go ahead and take the vaccine. Oh my God, please. They can go ahead and take the vaccine because it's optimized for them, right? Like, please, God, take it and rid us of your stupidity. I feel like that would be my best case scenario, and that we could get Black people to participate in the process, and maybe over time they'll be able to, you know, maybe some of these other vaccines coming down the pipeline will have better coverage for the actual diversity of the population. That said, you know, they seem to be safe within the margins of safety that we determine for clinical trials. And looks like they're effective. So if you have an opportunity to get the vaccine, fucking get it. Our goal as a population should be working towards immunity, individual immunity, and over time herd immunity. And the more people take the virus, regardless of their race or ethnicity or whatever, the harder it is for the virus to spread among the population. So I guess what I would really say in terms of who we are and what we're trying to do is that I hope to God that we can give Black and brown people a good understanding of everything that's going on, so that they can make choices for themselves that aren't influenced by propaganda and disinformation. So I'm sorry, that's kind of an answer, non-answer, but I don't think I know yet how I feel. I feel like we need to acknowledge that there's gonna be doubt and mistrust in our communities because of how we're mistreated by healthcare professionals and all of the unethical human research that we've been subjected to over America's dismal past. So that colors everything, right? What I really want Black people to understand and you know, is that if we've learned anything from this year, we all we got, right? We all we got. Mm-hmm. That's our lesson from 2020. So what we're trying to do is kind of like cut through all the noise and make sure people understand that what's going on, the systems that we have in place, the way they're refusing to give people, assistance, the way, half these people still don't even have healthcare, access to care. It's just all of that contributes to the spread and to the ridiculousness. But we have to remember that, like, we should lower our expectations all the way to the ground about any programming or anything that's going to be put in place. Like, I think we kind of have sometimes think that, like, oh, I'm sure they'll figure it out, whoever they is, right? But, like, in this instance, I think what we should take from the lesson from this year is we got. So it is so important that you really, like, stop and think about the discipline and the caution that it's going to take to make it through this until we get to the point where we're, like, a lot more of us can get vaccinated. And I think we're going to have to, like, get out of our feelings about it. I think a lot of people kind of have this, like, sense that they're just like, oh, well, I'm not going to, like, live my life in fear or whatever the fuck. It's like, you're not going to live your life at all, actually. It's really crazy to me that people, in the face of, like, serious illness or perhaps even certain death and, like, putting a mask on, people are just like, I'm not going to be doing all that. What? I don't understand the calculus there, but I suspect, just from my conversations with people and just how hard it is for me to even drive these points home with my own family, that I suspect that, you have, like, people who are just marginalized, completely forgotten by every system. And people out here struggling. I mean, the economic hardships, 40 million Americans have lost their jobs. We ain't getting no money. And if we get any money, would they get $600? Merry Christmas. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're not going to get any help, any assistance, anything, obviously. And it's just frustrating because there's so many people who are homeless, jobless, and I feel like as much as I'm, being derisive about people not adopting preventative measures like masks and social distancing, I also feel like maybe there's some people who are just like, it's just another Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many fucking things that they have to deal with, so many ways that Black people can lose their lives any given day, that maybe it's just not as big of a threat in some people's minds as it should be. And I don't fucking blame them. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about the people who don't have choices. Because at first I thought that it was about those people. And when we do need to help those people, the people who, I say, that, don't have the convenience of, like, staying at home. And I know it sounds, like, weird for me to call it a convenience because everyone feels like it's been such a burden to have their lives in such upheaval and have to, like, stay in the house and whatever. But it is a fucking convenience. It's a luxury. It's a privilege that, like, for example, I can work remotely and order delivery whatever, or just have the conveniences of life. And there are people who can't go 5 minutes without risk of exposure because of their job or their circumstances. Mm-hmm. These are the same groups of laborers who have no protections, health care, salary protection, time off. Yeah, right. And so they're already vulnerable. Those aren't even the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about them, but I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about I thought that that's who we were talking about. But the more that we've gone through this year, the more I realize that there is a whole other contingent that just doesn't give a fuck, too. So it's like, it's a lot of different things. And it's like, what I really need the people who don't give a fuck to know, besides that you're an asshole, is that it's, it's a matter of numbers. You feel me? Like you might be cool right now, you know, but that whole map is red. You hear me? It's a matter of time.
Deep red.
It's a number game. So I really want people to understand the discipline that it really takes, and to stop being so casual about your family gatherings and this and that. I see my cousins. Yeah, you cousins. I see y'all at the club, hanging out with the fam on the gram, flying and visiting and doing everything else. And you look crazy. And that's my family. I can't get my own family to do right. So it's frustrating. I don't know. That's a long-winded answer, Farrow, but that's where I'm at. And these are the questions that we're trying to answer and the challenges we're trying to meet in our organization. So.
Well, I hope we have solace in that. If Obama got asked that question, I'm sure he'd pass.
We don't have time.
I think that was a wonderful answer. That covered a lot of amazing stuff.
Here.
I'm really, really grateful that we've been able to have you on with us
Thank you for
tonight
having me.
to break this stuff
God.
down and be so real about all the stuff that's going on. It's great, and what a great chance for us to put you out and let more people hear about this.
Oh my gosh, we appreciate it so much.
We've got the links for hoodmedicine.org, and the Amazon Smile links are in all of the chat boxes in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch right now. So everybody go and click on those to show some support for Hood Medicine and help this work grow.
Thank you. It was so amazing seeing you guys again. All of your faces. So awesome. Wait, where's Randy?
He's off tonight. He's traveling. And he's got to go. He's got to go somewhere. But I can show you a clip of what happens when Cracker Barrel leaves the toy with a microphone on it in the front.
Do it.
All right, I'm gonna share a screen on this, and there it is. Let's go.
Turn me up, turn that mic up. We're bringing the cyber to Cracker Barrel right now. Biggie Smalls is in the house, y'all. Everybody get your hands up. I want to see, we just got the hands up right there. We're rocking this crowd tonight on the ones and twos. Everybody know what I'm doing. Gangstagrass in the house. Don't do it.
So that's what happens.
Yeah, we've been known to frequent the Cracker Barrels all over the.
Brutal. Good fact about that. That Cracker Barrel, no COVID cases.
Of course, that was pre-COVID.
That is amazing. It's amazing, and then also I want to take your TikTok away from you, but it's amazing.
Yes.
But actually, really do check out Gangstagrass's TikTok. It's outrageously awesome.
I think I'm going to now. That's awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Right,
tomorrow, 3 p.m., we've got Dolio's dance party.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, or something. Dolio's ones and twos.
Yeah, I think I might make this one a completely from the vinyl archives. So be prepared for some old school, some boogies and some punk.
Nice, and that is at gangstagrass.tv. Thank you again, molecular biologist Dr. Neecey Hudson, the Hood Medicine Initiative. Check it out, hoodmedicine.org, or you can support on Amazon Smile. I hope there's a way to get one of those dope t-shirts.
Totally. Yes, we're going to be doing a bonfire campaign for Christmas. So I'll send you the link.
I need to get that.
You do need one.
Yes, I do.
Cool.
Thank you to everybody that tuned in this evening. Tune in again with Dolio tomorrow and next week, next Friday. We love seeing y'all out with us.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Neecey.
Bye. Love you guys.